everyone, it's Allie and welcome to my channel, and today I am super excited to be talking with you about the 10 books I want to read before the end of summer. Alright, so let's not talk about the fact that I have not yet gotten through the 10 books that I wanted to read before the end of spring. I'm definitely still wanting to finish that TBR very soon, but I did recently go through my TBR shelves and I picked out 10 books, and 3 of the books actually are part of a series, but I picked out books that I felt like would be a good fit for the summer season, or they just have really been on my radar and I want to make sure I get to them over the next few months. I am someone who likes to read a lot of different genres every month. I usually read a fantasy, a historical fiction, literary fiction, usually a few thrillers, and I am definitely enjoying nonfiction a lot more now than I used to, so I've been reading about one of those every month. But I definitely am impacted by the seasons, and I find that in the fall, I like to read, of course, a lot of thrillers and more dark academia pieces. In the winter, I might read a lot of cozy historical fiction. And in the summer, I feel like I am drawn a bit more towards literary fiction. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first one I have is Markus Zusak, or Zusak. I actually don't know how to say his name. He is the author of The Book Thief, which is one of my favorite books of all time. But this book is Bridge of Clay, and I've had this for quite a while. I think probably since it first came out. Yeah, this came out in 2018, and I did read like 3/4 of this probably back in 2018 when it first came out. And for some reason, I just was really not in the mood for it, I think, when I first started to read it. It probably was just a really busy time of my life, and this is a pretty thick book, and I think it is one that you kind of need to focus on. But yeah, like I said, The Book Thief is one of my favorite books of all time, so I absolutely have been meaning to give this another go. And I'll just read a quick blurb. It says, "Let me tell you about our brother, the 4th Dunbar boy named Clay. Everything happened to him. We were all of us changed through him." So I think this is definitely going to be like a family drama story, a coming of age story. And like I was saying earlier, I just feel like for some reason this is the time of year that I am in the mood for that type of book. So let me know if you read this when it first came out in 2018, and if for some reason you never got around to The Book Thief. Let me tell you, it will change your life. It is always going to be a top 10 favorite for me. Another book that has been jumping out at me lately is Sarah Addison Allen's Other Birds. This is a book that I got on Book Outlet, and I did read the blurb, but I definitely was drawn in by the cover, I think. And I do think that this book is still on Book Outlet, so if you want to look it up there, you can definitely get this for a lot cheaper than other places. But this, I think, is going to be so perfect for summer. It says, "Down a narrow alley in the small coastal town of Mallow Island, South Carolina, lies a stunning cobblestone building comprised of 5 apartments. It's called the Delawisp, and it's named after the tiny turquoise birds who, alongside the human tenants, inhabit an air of magical secrecy. When Zoe Hennessy comes to claim her deceased mother's apartment at the Delawisp, she meets her quirky, enigmatic neighbors, including a girl on the run, a grieving chef whose comfort food does not comfort him, 2 estranged middle-aged sisters, and 3 ghosts. Each with their own story, each with their own longings, each whose ending isn't yet written." I think this definitely has the potential to be a 5-star read. It sounds super good to me, and I love magical realism, and I love books that have all these different characters who have their own stories and their own things that they're working through. But of course, set on the small coastal town of Mallow Island, South Carolina is perfect. And if you guys didn't know, I very recently moved from the Midwest, from Columbus, Ohio, down to Charleston area, South Carolina. So I can definitely picture the coastal South Carolina setting. Another thing that I want to get better at, and maybe I just do this once every quarter, is tackling a classic book that I have had on my radar for a long time, and maybe it's intimidated me by when it was written or the length or whatever. And I want to take my time with these books, and that's why I probably will end up reading one only about every 3 months or so. Like, I've got The Count of Monte Cristo on my list, which is like 1,000 pages or something ridiculous. But yeah, I think there's a time for like a quick thriller read that you can read in a weekend, and then there's also a time to really settle down with some of these classics or even more recent books that are quite lengthy or quite in-depth. But really taking the time to appreciate the art of literature is something that I feel like I haven't done as much lately. But first up on my list of classics to get through is East of Eden by Steinbeck. And this doesn't have a cover because I did actually pick this up at a thrift store, and originally I kind of just got it to use as decor, but I really do want to read this book. And it's kind of funny because my sister is staying with me this summer. She's staying for about 6 weeks, and she is currently working through East of Eden. So maybe if you guys are interested, when I finish this, we could do a little discussion about it. Maybe I'll do that every time I work through a big classic. So if you've been wanting to read this book too, maybe this is your sign to try to get it done by the end of July, because that's when my sister's leaving, and then we can all chat about it in a future video. But I really don't actually know that much about this story aside from it's like inspired by Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, I think. But it was written in 1952, so I think this is going to be a good classic to start with because the language is not going to be too complicated. On a different, lighter note, I have The Jet Setters, and I think you can see why I want to read this summer. It is just such a coastal, beachy, pool type read, I feel like. Very, very cute cover, and as you can see, this actually was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. And I definitely got this from Book Outlet like last spring, I think, like spring 2023, and I just never got around to it last summer. I feel like I didn't end up reading that much last summer. But I think this is going to be really cute. This is going to be a nice one to maybe just read on a slow weekend or just read over a couple days as I'm sitting outside by the pool. But this says, when 70-year-old Charlotte Perkins submits a sexy essay to the Become a Jet Setter contest, she dreams of reuniting her estranged children. Lee, an almost famous actress, Cord, a handsome Manhattan venture capitalist who can't seem to find a partner, and Reagan, a harried mother who took it all wrong when Charlotte bought her a Weight Watchers gift certificate for her birthday. So it sounds like it's just going to be a fun family story where they're all spending time together on a trip, and I'm sure a lot of drama and family issues are going to come out. And it's so funny because I feel like a lot of the year I'm really not in the mood for this kind of book, but yeah, for some reason it sounds like a good summer read to me. Next up we have a historical fiction book, and forgive me for still having my half-price book sticker on there, but this is 19 Steps by Millie Bobby Brown, and I think she has been pretty open about the fact that she had a lot of help writing this book, but I mean, it's not too surprising to me when actors, actresses, or musicians, or just any creative kind of dabbles in each other's arts. So even though she did have some help, I'm sure Millie Bobby Brown does just have a natural storytelling ability. And one of the reviews on the back, actually Fiona Davis, who is a very famous historical fiction author, she wrote, "Brown brings to life an unfamiliar and shocking tragedy that took place during World War II in London's East End. Supported by a rich cast of characters, her tale of first love, poignant regrets, and the search for truth makes for a spellbinding read, enthralling." So I like that this is focusing on something that I think is not talked about a lot, which I'm not exactly sure what that is yet. But hopefully this will stand out amongst other World War II novels, which can sometimes get pretty similar. But the reason I think this is going to be a good read for this summer is because it is a pretty short historical fiction novel, and a lot of them are pretty thick, pretty in-depth, and I feel like in the summer I just don't necessarily have as much time to really like dive into books like that. But I'm still gonna try with East of Eden, so we'll see how it goes. And then one of the nonfiction books that I want to read this summer is The Churchill Sisters, and this is focusing on the extraordinary lives of Winston and Clementine's daughters. But like historical fiction, a lot of nonfiction can be quite thick and dense, and this one I think is not going to be too hard to get through. But I'm really interested in this because I like this time period, like the early to mid 1900s. And I love people, like I'm always so interested in people and their stories, so I think it's just going to be really, really cool to read about the differences between these 4 Churchill girls. We've got Diana, Sarah, Marigold, which I love, and Mary. But it sounds like we're gonna be taken through each of their lives, which I just think is gonna be really, really interesting. Now we've got another Reese's Book Club pick. This is The Island of Missing Trees. And I think I've had this as long as I've had the Jet Setters book. I probably got it in the same Book Outlet order. But again, just such a summer looking book, so hopefully it does fit the vibe. But it sounds like this is going to be a bit of magical realism, so I love that. So it's set on an island and 2 teenagers have forbidden love. The teenagers end up vanishing. Decades later, one of them returns. It sounds like he's looking for his lost love, but it says it is a moving, beautifully written, and delicately constructed story of love, division, transcendence, history, and eco-consciousness. And it is the author's best work yet. So hopefully that's true, and hopefully I really enjoy this. And then the last three that I'm going to share are actually all part of a series. So I'm only going to share the first one, but I could see myself getting through the whole series of all of these books this summer. That's something I want to be a little bit better at because I do really like reading a series pretty quickly. Not necessarily back to back to back, but I feel like with some series I've let too much time go by, and that has kind of affected my want to read the rest of the series, even though I know I would enjoy the books. I feel like that's kind of happened with the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I read the first two, I think too much time has gone past. I've tried to get into the third, and I just haven't been in the mood for it, but I know so many people love the series as a whole, and I did really enjoy the first two. So hopefully this summer I will actually finish that series as well, but that's not what we're talking about. So first for the series, I do have a middle grade series that I have been itching to get to, and that is The Thickety. So I'm pretty sure this is the first book. This is The Last Spell, and I did end up picking up the whole series at a discount bookstore last year. So that's always nice when you know you have access to all the books, and if I am burning through this one, I can just go right to the second one. And even though this does look a little bit thick, it is a very short book and the words on the pages are pretty big. Oh, I think I totally messed this up. I think this is actually the last book, so I don't want to read the back, but I think it is going to be kind of like a magical realism type story, maybe like a Wildwood type of vibe. And it looks like these books came out in like the mid 2000s because this is the last one and it came out in 2017. So hopefully this will be a great middle grade series. I really do like reading a lot of middle grade, and I definitely want to read more in the future. I also would like to get to the Finley Donovan is Killing It series. I do have the first two. I got them on Book Outlet, so you might also be able to get them on Book Outlet if you're looking for them. But I feel like this is a good mystery thriller type book that's lighthearted enough to be good for a summer read. Although I definitely am going to be doing like a week of reading dark thrillers for Summerween, because after reading all this stuff, I know I'm going to be in the mood for it. So I think this is going to be a really fun read, and it sounds like it'd be a good movie, so I don't know if a movie's in the works for this or not. But Finley Donovan is just kind of like your average stressed out single mom of two, and she is overheard discussing the plot of her new suspense novel with her agent over lunch, and she is mistaken for a contract killer and accidentally accepts an offer to dispose of a problem husband. So I think this is going to be pretty humorous, pretty lighthearted, but still a little bit of a mystery maybe going on. So I am excited to get into this. I probably won't read the whole series this summer, but probably at least the first two. And then the last book that I'll share is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I did get all four, I think, yes, all four of these books from Book Outlet, and that is my suggestion, that if you see a good book pop up on Book Outlet, I would recommend just buying it, which is like actually not very good advice, I guess. But if there's a book on there that you have been wanting to get for a good price, just know that they don't always last forever on Book Outlet. But this is the author who wrote the Inheritance games, and I do have the first three books in that series, and I definitely am gonna finish it at some point. But the first book in that series was a little bit of a disappointment, not because it was written bad or anything like that, but I just was a little bit confused, I think, about what that story was actually about. I thought it was going to be much more like puzzles and things like that, and it wasn't quite that vibe. But I do feel like I'm gonna like this series better. It says, cold cases are about to get hot. 17-year-old Cassie Hobbs is a natural at reading people, piecing together the tiniest details. She can tell you who you are and what you want. But it's not a skill that she's ever taken seriously. That is, until the FBI comes knocking. They've begun a classified program that uses exceptional teenagers to crack infamous cold cases, and they need Cassie. So it sounds like there's going to be some mystery. There's going to be kind of like that academic setting where there's this cast of characters and they all each have their own skills, which I really enjoy. I definitely eat that stuff up. So of course, dependent on how this first one goes, how quickly I want to finish the series, but I do think I'll probably read all four before the end of summer. And of course, because I am such a mood reader, I will be adding in other books throughout the next few months as well. So definitely make sure to subscribe to my channel so you can hear my upcoming review videos as well as vlogs and other things that I have planned for the summer. So yeah, if all that sounds good to you, definitely make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you did like it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!